All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another special video. So today I wanted to talk about what I do on a daily basis, how to make silver and everything. So I've made these videos before, but I just wanted to give an update, and of course everything changes as the game progresses and new features are added. So I figured I'd just let you guys know what I do on a daily and how I go about playing the game. So this is obviously going to be different for everyone, and how I make like billions of silver and everything, but maybe I can give you guys some tips. Obviously it'll be different, like how much you make and everything, depending on your life skill levels, your AP, gear, and everything. But if you're a new player or not, maybe you can get some tips as well, and you can start doing it, and the more you play, the more you make. So anyway, the first thing I do, let's say we start the morning off, is Imperial Delivery. So I've done the math on this, and the way it works is, if you've never done this before, there's a different amount of delivery quantity that you can turn in every single day, and ideally the one you want to do is the highest one you can do. So like if you were cooking, or master, guru, whatever your cooking level is, you can turn in that many boxes. And the number you can turn in is based on your contribution points divided by 2. So I'm able to turn in 226 every day. And honestly, it's profit if you could do guru boxes, even master. So there's a lot of different ways to do it, depending on if you gather. You can even straight up just buy it off the market. Like, for example, whatever meal, turn them into packaging, and then you just turn them in. So overall, I would say I make about 100 mil, maybe more, in profit. The overall total is probably about like 265 mil, and then the cost of materials, and after that, it's only about 100 mil profit. But for about 5 minutes a day, just AFK processing, it's really easy to do. So I'd recommend doing it. And if you are planning on buying it off the market, just all the meals, just make sure to look at the price of the one that's, like the cheapest one to make and the most efficient. I think that Valencia meals are pretty cheap. Calpheon and Balanos meals are okay. And, the market changes, so you're just going to have to find the one that works for you. But yeah, if you're a master or artisan, I think all of these are profit, but I'd recommend just power leveling master and guru. And the best way to do that would be all those nodes that we have, and just cook like grilled bird meat, and then you get the byproducts, turn them into like food or stuff that you'll actually feed your workers, and you'll get a bunch of witches' delicacies, turn that into contribution points, and you can get master or guru in like a day or two, and depending on how much you have. So very easy. And the next thing we do in BDO is farming. Now, farming itself is not like direct silver, but it's a lot in terms of materials and stuff you need. So I personally put my farms here. I don't particularly min-max it, and I think if you are trying to go hard or get a lot of a certain material, what you would want to do is go buy like 10 by 10 fences, like 10 fences with like 10 slots of whatever seed you're growing, and multiple ones. For me, I'm kind of on the lazier side of it. I just used magical ones, which is, essentially 5 per slot times 2. And the way you can check it is over here. And you can actually get, I believe, 2 old moon fences from questing, so you don't have to spend CP. And then I just have the rest. And so these are the fences from the Pearl Shop. If you need extra contribution points, you can buy them. Do I think you'll need them? Not particularly. Like, if I ever needed 60 contribution points, I'd just buy it, but I don't. So anyway, the point of farming is to get some extra byproducts, right? And so you get these things called the blush leaf. And if you are going for tier 9 horses, you get the stone tail fodder. Otherwise, contribution XP and farming is also a good way to like boost your contribution points. And then you can do more Imperial deliveries every day. So yeah, like I personally do that. My farming is Master 24. However, I do think that farming is one of those life skills where once you hit like Master 1, it's kind of irrelevant. I feel like farming needs to be updated in terms of like what the tiers do and what mastery actually gives. So higher levels reduced energy consumption. So if you want more XP, you really gotta do 10 by 10 farms, and by that I mean 10 plots times 10 crops on there. So like 100. It takes about, if you do the full 100 thing, probably about 10-15 minutes a day, or like per cycle, and you do it multiple times. And if you're actually thinking about going hard on farming, I honestly have no idea. I don't think this has ever worked in the like history of BDO, like the 8 years I've been playing. This is supposed to like tell you like resource and everything, like weather, and so you also kind of look at all these charts. I guarantee you most people do not look at half of these things, but like in theory, if they were to have worked, you would place your crops in like certain areas that would like basically, if you're growing a certain crop, you want it to be in the right temperature and weather. So yeah, I think like use your best judgment for the most part, but I really don't think people use it. Like just put it in an open area. I know people put it in Velia a lot, and just Calpheon, depending on what you're growing, if you're really trying to min-max it. But it's good for tier 9 horse materials, and you get all the Stonetail stuff, which depending on the time of the year, or like if there's any events going on, you would be able to get courser training materials. So I guess right now is a decent time if to push tier 9 horses. Like the Crocodile stones are kind of on the low, but all the materials you can get. So it really just depends, and depends on your server. So farming, it's a decent amount of silver, but you just have to like do extra steps to turn it into silver essentially. And the next thing we do on a daily is Pit of the Undying, and this is over here. You just type Pit of the Undying, and basically what it does is you fight 4 or 5, I think this is 4, maybe sometimes 5 waves of bosses, and what you get out of them is, where is it? Let me show you. All these insignia crow things from Pride of Pen. And basically, the higher you rank up, the more materials you get out of it, and also gives you like the plus 30% combat bonus, which it's additive, not multiplicative, so it's not really that much. It's just kind of one of those, hey, I did it to do it kind of things. And the main importance of doing it is simply that you get these, where is it? Seal of Undying coins. So for all of you who have never done this, or you never heard of it, you can get cronstones daily from like, I don't know, 50 to 100 cronstones daily, depending on the difficulty of Pit of Undying you do. So if you don't want to spend a couple 100 mil every day on, or if you just don't want to spend it, just start doing Pit of Undying every day. Otherwise, if you need massive pure magics, it's also a pretty good source of them. I think most of these are kind of irrelevant, to be honest. I think most people just get the cronstones and or masses if you need them. But yeah, that's a good source of getting these every day. For about like 10 to 15 minutes of work, 50 to 100 cronstones, pretty nice. And so yeah, that's about it. I have some videos of that as well if you want to watch it. But yeah, I've gone all the way up to Pen, did every single boss, the highest difficulty. And the way you do that is you get these cron black jewels just by doing it daily, and then once you get enough of them, you could take the test, and basically it sends you to like fight more bosses and just see if you can understand boss mechanics and everything. So it's not difficult. I think it's something you should start because it has a time limit on it, so you do one set every day, but you get the materials, and I think it's about like 1 month to get everything. I'm not sure, it's been a while, but yeah, it's something I would recommend doing to get some cronstones on the side. Everyone will need them eventually, so I think that's good. The next thing I do is, usually when I wake up, usually you have some energy left over, and so I do gather. And if you haven't done the Land in the Morning Light, I would recommend doing that, and especially unlocking the green thumb gathering thing over here, so you can toggle on and off. So basically what that allows you to do is proc like 10 to 1s essentially. And so like when you gather, you spend 1 energy, get X amount of materials. Every now and then like a multiplier proc happens and you get like 10 times the resources for 10 times the energy. I think it's worth having. It just saves a lot of time. So I guess to give you a comparison, if I were to dump all 600 something of my energy back before that event, it would take me about an hour and 20 minutes to go from max energy to empty. Now with that thing on, it takes me like 45 minutes. So it actually does cut off a big chunk of time. It's nice to do. And so I'd recommend doing it. And life skilling, I think gathering is a very decent source of silver as well, especially for beginners, because it's very easy. You don't need too much gear. More mastery is always better, but you could just do it as a beginning. And it's a lot of near town things as well. So it's like if you don't have a lot of weight, you don't have a lot of maids or anything, you could just go to like Heidel and just go down here, start chopping trees, go down to Bear where the town is, start chopping a lot of stuff down there. So there's a lot of good sources for materials and profit, and I have videos of that which I think are pretty interesting. So yeah, that's gathering. I do that probably maybe once, maybe twice a day, depending on how I feel that day. And then of course next is grinding. Grinding, we all know, is the most silver you can get an hour. Well, I guess for the majority of players, I think if you are very high end in life skilling, you could compete with it. But for the most part, I would say for like the rest of us, 99%, grinding will just be the best way to get silver, straight up. And if you don't know, you could do this thing called the Monster Zone info, and you could sort by AP. So if you don't know where you're like where to grind, or you could find out like certain items. If you're going for like Debarekas, for example, you could always just like search it up and then find things by region. So infinite potion pieces, like treasure pieces for the most part, for example, and just like overall you could search up like the drop tables and a lot of different things. So yeah, overall I think it's pretty good. Grinding, something we've all done since like the first day, maybe first week we've played the game, so something easy to do. Personally, for me, I like to set goals of what I do, and I don't just grind a spot particularly because it's highest silver. Sometimes I am actually going for something. So like for example, if your goal is to get a telescope piece, you'd be grinding the Ulakita areas, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's the highest silver, but you have a goal in mind. And so I have a video on the best spots to grind for like XP, silver, just leveling and or Agris and all that stuff. I should probably do an updated one in that in the future. So yeah, that's about it. And for all of you on the PvP side, there's a thing called Red Battlefield and Node Wars. So Red Battlefield is basically like this. Let me show it to you. Red Battlefield, I admittedly think it depends on the kind of time of the day when people are actually doing the RBFs, and usually there's only one major like room that fills up. And so Red Battlefield is kind of like objective capture the flag, essentially, or a hard point if you play Call of Duty. And you just like gear check other people, and then once a week from Red Battlefield you get some rewards like dust that you turn into Capra stones, energy daily, which I think is always nice. And of course, if you like PvP, it's PvP. But for everyone else who doesn't like it and you like gear capped stuff, there's Node Wars. And even if you aren't good at PvP, I would recommend trying to join a guild or like merc into a guild that does the PvP types you want. And what I mean by that is there are different tiers of Node Wars. And so for example, like let's say you are, on the mid side, you have like 280 AP or something. I don't know what is average these days, but like there's 5 different tiers. So for example, there's a tier 2 here, a tier 5, and you can look at all the stats of what that tier of Node War means. So like if you're more geared, to higher tier means like for the veteran players, and then like a tier 1 or something is, you know, for like newer players with like less gear and everything. So if you were to look at this, essentially you would find the AP cap limit. So green number means you are over capped in it, and red means you could meet their minimum requirement. So yeah, I would definitely find a tier or a guild that does a certain tier of Node Wars for you, and no matter where you're at, there's something to do. There's also Arena of Solaire. That's not really rewarding, but like if you like cap PvP, there's that. But if you're trying to make money out of it, in Node Wars, all you have to do is like participate and, you know, get like a certain kill death ratio from your entire guild. And even if you don't like aren't that good at it, as long as you for the most part participate, I think most guilds get rewarded. So there's that. So that's a lot of the solo stuff that I do. And I wanted to talk about some other stuff that makes me silver, but it's kind of like on the weekly side of things. So first of all, the where is it? The Black Shrine. It's over here. This one. If you've done the Land of the Morning Light, we all know there's bosses for all of these, and you just do the bosses weekly, get some rewards and everything. So I think it's you know, worth doing once a week. And people are like, oh, I can't do Calamity 7s. Trust me when I say that Calamity 7 rewards are not that much better for the amount of effort and time you put in. Like, it's good to do it once just to say you've done it. But I think for the most part, as long as people are sticking with like Calamity 5s, and like, let's say that's all you do, I think that's good enough, honestly. 5s are good. 6s are decent. The drop rate is in theory supposed to be a little bit higher for like the rarer items. I do this every week and I don't see a difference. Like, the difference realistically is you get maybe 1 or 2 more guaranteed memfrags or whatever, and that's so irrelevant to the point where if you're just going for like the expensive billion silver drops, that's not a regular. So to give you a quick rundown of, I think, the bosses that I would do for beginners and the easy ones, I think Bamboo Legion is the easiest one to do. Well, actually, all the moon ones, all the moon bosses are pretty easy. The green ones are a mixed difficulty. Some are very difficult and some are annoying. I think Sangoon is the easiest one that most people do on the green tier, and it's also the fastest. But if you are new and starting out, I'd recommend just doing the blue ones, maybe a Sangoon and maybe a Golden Pig King to do your 5. All of them are pretty unique. Some of them are harder than the others, but I think from difficulty of easiest is moon tier, mid tier is red and the sun one, and the hardest ones are definitely the mountain green ones by far. So yeah, just experiment, find the ones you like, just do those weekly, and then you get some rewards. Most of the time they probably won't be that good, but I would recommend just doing them weekly. So then after that, we have seasonals. And now that seasons are basically permanent, it's good to have a seasonal character just doing the weeklies, and it doesn't matter if you actually play it that much or not. So what I'd recommend doing is starting your reoccurrings. So for example, I guess I have to be on a season character to show you, but there's like one for doing the weekly thing where you get the enhancing materials, and then the one that's like a Rift Echo, and then also gives you time-filled Blackstones. And it's definitely worth doing it just for, you know, you could turn all these in for fail stacks and or anything else you might need. So in my opinion, if you are a new player, there's no need to ever rush playing seasons, because, you know, you get rewarded a little bit more than your average player. So for example, let's say I'm 250 AP and I'm grinding on a non-season server, right? I'll get the same drops as you do. However, seasonal players get the extra time-filled Blackstones and, you know, the slight XP bonus every now and then. So you could also sell this for silver. It's only like 10,000 more, but like technically it is more than non-season servers. So I don't think there's ever a rush to finish up the season. I would just take your time, and especially if you follow along with the story and everything, I think it's definitely worth just having. And even for veteran players, I don't think there's a rush to do it unless there's like you actually want to graduate from seasons. But yeah, just like do some weeklies, maybe actually learn a new class on seasons. And so yeah, I think that's a good thing to do. But overall, I think that is most of the activities I do. Sometimes I do the Atoraxxian dungeons with my friends or guild, and you know, that is questionable amounts of silver. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. But it's also the Atoraxxian dungeons. You do the normal version or the veteran version, which is the Elvia version, and basically kind of just do these and then get the box, and then it's decent amount of rewards, like at least a bill or two a week, depending on what you get. So if you can find a group of 5 people, like 4 plus you, and do them weekly, I think it's a decent amount of silver for the time you spend. It's kind of fun the first few times you do it, and then after that, it just comes like a weekly activity. But overall, I think it's definitely something worth doing. So with that said, I also do a lot of other things, but those aren't like super notable. It's really just like prepping for either life skills or grinding. I also do a little bit of hunting, actually. Ever since they made the change with universal life skills, and your like, what is it? All your life skills are unified by family. I have a character down at, where is it? Down in, where is my other character? Okay, so all these characters kind of look the same. Atoraxxian, right? And that's the best spot for farming. So I do that every now and then, and it's not bad. It's kind of like gathering, but for different types of materials and or grinding. But that's about it. That's how I make billions of silver a day. If I were to put a number out of how much I make, a majority of it comes from grinding, but everything else, if I were to take out grinding from the list of activities, is probably about like 2 billion silver from just easy activities, and then grinding is probably another like 1.5 billion per hour I make. So it really ranges, and that's about it. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to point you guys in the right directions. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I'd love to see you come back. I make videos for beginners, returning players, and people who are looking to get better at this game. So I've been playing this game for over 8 years, and I like to share the knowledge I've made over the years with you guys, help you guys improve and get to end game as well. So yeah, that's about it. I'll see you guys later. I hope you have a fantastic day, and peace.